They told us to trust the system, but if that were true, why are we sicker than ever before? Here's the one body part that predicts almost every major disease and why they've ignored it for decades. And to say it a different way, what if I told you that there's one part of your body that could predict and even prevent your biggest health problems, but the system deleted it from the conversation? Why would they do such a thing? I mean, the simplest answer would be that it just makes it convenient for profit. And I think we're all kind of getting keen on it. A lot of companies, shareholders, and big corporations, if they can make more money or make more profit, regardless of what they have to change or what gets in the way, and even lives, it seems like this is a common and consistent thing that we keep on seeing. So right now, if we look at the US healthcare system, we are spending more money on healthcare than any other country or any of the other next two or three countries combined. And, you know, when we have these major corporations making not just this amount of money, but using that money to further their interests, it's only natural that there's going to be some things that get out of hand, right? And I think we all agree that healthcare and dentistry is far too expensive. But let's look at how to simplify it for our best benefit. And I think in order to do that, we first need to understand how we got here, and if something is off, or if we've been deleting something, a fundamental rule or principle or piece of knowledge, we want to restore that and bring that back into the conversation. And by the way, I invite this as not just a video you watch. I'm not a teacher or a coach telling you what to do. In fact, this is just the beginning of a conversation I think we should all have as individuals, so that way we don't become a patient ever. And if we are a patient, we must have this conversation so we can go back to society as an individual and not stay sick. So when we look at the top 10 reasons for death, and we have a new one on the list here at the very bottom, but you see the top two reasons are heart disease and cancer. Now, I want to bring attention to these, and we're intentionally not going to go into reading all of these different articles, because I've spent at one point reading everything on one disease. It took me about 6, almost 8 months to read everything I could on a disease, and the articles and the newsletters that were written on the topic are very different than the data and the numbers. Most of the companies that write these articles and science research papers, they have a profit-driven interest to launch a product, chemical, or some kind of treatment plan into the marketplace. And so we instead, we want to look at the data. We want to look at the hard numbers to get the truth. And the way I look at it is, if you look at the numbers of what are the top killers, or what are the top reasons for death, you can see they rank at the top. Now, I wanted to just check by going back into the 1900s, and you see the same thing. We used to have pneumonia or influenza, tuberculosis, or gastrointestinal issues as the top three. All of those have gone away, or so they say, and now we have a lot of heart disease and cancer issues. Now, I just want to bring up one more thing. If we look at top reasons for death in 1600s, back then they used to get a lot more specific with the way that they would count diseases and deaths. And so just like this is based out of every 100,000 deaths to see which one has the most common pattern, we see the same thing with this table of casualties. And this was, again, in the 1600s, or they say the 17th century, and you can see that they had a very exhaustive list of all of the things that were the top reasons for death. But the reason why I bring this up is, if you look here, teeth and worms is by far outranking anything next to it. It was one of the 5th or 6th top reasons for death. Now, where does that show up on this picture or on this picture? It doesn't show up at all. Now, could it be that most of the people, like if you just delete the dental department and you delete the dental, anything, dental care, Is it possible that they are mislabeling some of these dental caused or dental issues that are starting from dentistry, whether it's a disease, an issue, some kind of infection going on inside the mouth? Let's not use that dirty 6-letter word, that the one that starts with D and ends with L. I say it that way because it's confusing. What if we have an infection in the mouth that, because they don't have a dentist or a dental department, and it spreads to other areas of their body, they're just mislabeling it a heart disease or a cancer? Now that would be crazy, right? I mean, we would expect a hospital system to do better, or especially after spending hundreds of millions and if not billions of dollars in healthcare, we would expect to have a better system, right? But just like with a pack of vultures, if you see a piece of flesh, and I hate to make that comparison, but for these corporations, that's all they see people and patients as, is a number in a way to make profit instead of looking at that individual as a living human being. And the reason why we say that is because it's evident in the numbers when you see that we have the top healthcare expenditures in this country. And based on this, you would expect, especially if we spend so much on heart disease and brain cancer research, that we would have gotten closer to that goal. But as you can see, over 100 years ago, and even over a few hundred years ago, we haven't improved. We've gotten worse. So it really begs the question, is any of this research actually moving us in a forward direction? There's a lot of things that they would say, like, oh, there was the polio and the inoculations, or there was that whole vaccines that helped, or there was, the advent of what, just go ahead and name it off. I think painkillers and trauma care is a very necessary thing. Like, for example, if I get in a car accident and I'm ripped into two, give me the morphine, give me any of the pharmaceuticals. And this is exactly what my top health doctors and healing doctors have told me too. If they're in a car accident, pump them up with whatever they need, the painkillers. But the second that I have my blood pressure and my heart rate stable, get that crap as far away as you can from me and let my body do the healing. The best doctors and the best healers in the world are the ones that understand and have the experience to know that the best thing that they can do is usually get out of a patient's way. Now, it is a doctor's job to help people in a state of emergency, or when the patient has done everything they can in their own life, own habits and lifestyle and choices to do the things that they can to keep themselves healthy. But never before have we seen this situation, or I should say this occurrence, where we made it common to just go to a doctor first before doing the things that we could ourselves. I mean, most of the things that we see as disease can be fixed by lifestyle and are avoidable. Not just the dental piece, a lot of the other diseases, but understanding that dental is the cause of most of these issues, I think, is going to help a lot of people get their health plan into the right order. And that's actually what we wanted to do, is after realizing this huge gap in healthcare and this big problem, I wanted to find out how could it be that we were missing the boat so much. And not to alarm you or scare you anymore, but just stick with me just 1 minute. And if you see, there is also another very big missing piece to these top 10 deaths. It wasn't just the teeth. In the old times, they would admit that there was medical error, there was doctor's error, there was physician's error. But there wasn't very many talks about that in the public space, especially on the news. It's very hard to find. But the top medical research university in not just the US but in the world, one of them is Johns Hopkins, and they did a patient safety study and found out the CDC admitted to about 150,000 people per year, but they calculated it was closer to about 250,000 deaths per year due to medical error. Now, if you remember back at this chart, that does place it at number 3. They're going to debate it, and the people with money, the ones that make money from the hospitals, are going to do everything they can to hide that number. But the top leading research arm itself in that same system admits or estimates that there is about 250,000 deaths. And again, that's just a calculation. It could be less than that, but it could be more than that. And that is the alarming thing. But if you just took that into account, that medical error is the top leading cause of death, and then we now understand by clinical and by peer-reviewed study, not just one or two papers. Dr. Levy's book has over 30 peer-reviewed, validated, not just by a medical team, but by a legal team. And what he has found in his book, Hidden Epidemic, is that 70% of all heart disease and breast cancer starts from the mouth. To say it a different way, we're finding out that 90% of issues inside of our body and the things that we go to a hospital for, 90% of those things, that when the dental issue, infection, or disease is removed, those things tend to magically, miraculously clear up. And I think we're going to find out in a very short time that these things aren't very much a miracle or magic anymore. A quick side note, and I might not get this quote exactly correct, but they used to say that magic was just specialized knowledge or hidden knowledge that gave off that appearance, basically. And we see those shows, right, that kind of reveal the magic. So not that this is magic, not that this is a miracle, but I think that we're going to see, especially as we understand that heart disease and cancer, what amount of this is mislabeled. And again, some doctors and evidence are showing at least 70%, but I think more and more we understand that there's going to be about 80 or 90%. And it just makes sense, right? Because we eat, breathe, kiss, communicate literally through our mouth. A lot of people, breathe through your mouth. And so the largest communicator with the outside world in volume and is going to have a lot of contaminants is through the mouth. So it makes sense then that is where we're going to get the most diseases, because we're filtering and we're getting our nutrients through that area. And again, if left unchecked, our body does circulate and our blood does circulate through our body. But why this heart disease number? Why the cancer number? Again, I'm not going to have all the answers for you in this video, but this is a very good start, because we get that heart disease number because, just like with anything, regardless of where something starts in the body, if you dropped like a marker drop into your body and tracked where it would go, 70% of the time it ends up going through and landing in your heart, just because that is the biggest cavity and the central part of your body. So could it just simply be that as we have disease in our mouth, and as we've seen, 70% of it causes breast cancer and diseases, and we've seen actually from x-rays, you can see it in the book in Hidden Epidemic and in Toxic Tooth, how if you just take an x-ray of the mouth, you can see the disease and the infection. And if you take an x-ray of the chest, you can see the disease and infection. But if you scan out and we're seeing, oh, that's interesting that we're seeing that disease and infection travel from the mouth into the chest or the breast or whatever that cancer is. And so there are some oncologists and some cancer doctors that are going as far as to say that every single cancer patient, especially the ones that are terminally ill, have some kind of dental disease issue that they're either ignoring or not aware of, or didn't realize that there was some kind of connection like this. So that's it for this video. I know that this was a shock for me. I kind of touched on this 8 years ago, and since then this was such a huge realization for me, because it meant that everything that we do in healthcare, at least from a mass population point, is mistriaged, and we're doing everything the wrong way, because we're dealing with the second, third, and fourth rate, or we're going backwards, when instead we could just work from the ground up, or the top down, or however you want to say it, but fundamentals first. We should work where the fundamental root cause of the problem is, what's the first focal point infection that's causing all of the other infections, and we would be in a much better spot. And there's a lot of evidence for this, and it just happens to be that the acronym is D.R.E.A.M, but I think that's more of the perspective or lens that I like to view all of this from, is data rules everything around me when it comes to making decisions about our health and understanding what really is a good decision versus not. I've gotten a lot of flack. I've even had channels and social media accounts shut down because, there's some things, we're all human and we learn, and I'm sure there's things that I wouldn't say again. But the point is this is one topic that I can be very sure on, that I've thought about, researched, meditated, and it is a surprise at first, but when you really think about it, it makes more sense than anything else. That the health does start from the mouth. The mouth is part of our body, and that health is from head to toe, meaning you can't have a healthy body without a healthy mouth. We know that disease starts from the mouth, and that the mouth isn't just any part of the body, it's the leading predictor and indicator of our health. So hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. If you have any concerns, if you have any topics, any questions for some of the next and upcoming videos, be happy to share those. And take care. Remember, health starts from the mouth. And dental is medical. Much more than we know.